Okay.
All right, we're on. So here we are. We're meeting. This is group number 2. I'm Kristen Whiteman.
I'm Megan Hill.
I'm Jessica Johnson.
And we've decided on an order of what order we're going to go in, and I can't remember what it is. So whoever's first, go for it.
Okay, I'm Megan. I'm going first. And I am just going to read my speech to you guys. Okay, let me get it pulled up. Okay. A 3-year-old boy wails as his father's hand rushes down and connects with the bare skin of his upper leg, inflicting a painful sting that the child is all too familiar with. He cannot remember what he's being punished for as the memory of his misdeed is replaced with pain and fear. After a few blows, the boy looks down at his leg with tear-filled eyes and sees that his skin has welled up in the shape of a red, swollen handprint. Believe it or not, this scene has taken place in some form inside the homes of 90% of 3- and 4-year-old children in the United States. Regardless of whether or not each circumstance is as severe as the one that I just described, research points to the use of corporal punishment as being ineffective and destructive. According to an analysis of various studies on the subject, the practice results in heightened aggression, lowered self-esteem, little to no improvement of behavior, and it causes physical harm that sometimes results in serious injury. The Ministry of Social Development put it perfectly in saying, when compliance is just as easily and effectively achieved with alternate inductive and positive methods of child rearing and milder forms of punishment, it is unnecessary, risky, and unethical to use physical punishment. Despite the obvious negative consequences, it is still widely used and accepted in the United States, not only in homes but in many school systems as well. In fact, it is lawful for teachers to physically punish children in some public and private schools in 19 states. The Society for Adolescent Medicine documents severe medical consequences that are caused by corporal punishment. In one case, a 5th grade boy was beaten. His genitals were swollen and bruised. His mother, and I quote, had to pull the
Megan, is she gone?
She's gone. I wondered if it was mine frozen, but she's frozen, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like she's frozen.
Okay. What should we do?
I can start. I don't know. Wait for a minute. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, that's hard because if she's just giving her speech.
I know.
Hopefully she knows she's kicked out.
But she probably doesn't realize she's kicked out.
Dang.
Yeah, because she's just reading it. There she is.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, you're
Megan,
muted.
you're muted. Muted.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
My
You
dad
went
got on the
away.
internet, but I got him to get off, and now I should be good. Okay, what was the last thing you heard?
I heard something about swollen genitals. That's the last thing I
I'm
heard.
so sorry. That was the last thing you heard.
I don't know about the rest of you, but that was where I was at.
Okay, I'm just gonna pick up right there.
All right.
Okay. All right.
In one case, a 5th grade boy in Texas was beaten so severely at school that his genitals were swollen and bruised. His mother had to, and I quote, pull the underwear off his behind from the dried blood. Unfortunately, this story is not the only one of its kind.
Okay. I think she left again. This is a bummer.
I don't even know what to do about this. It keeps kicking me out.
I guess just plug it through it. You're good.
Okay. I'm really sorry.
You're just fine. I don't know how to help it. I wish I could help more.
This has never happened, and of course it's happening when I have to give a speech.
During these very sad stories.
I know. Okay.
All right, maybe like if you guys could just like kind of keep fidgeting and moving so I can see when you're frozen, so I don't keep talking. I'm just kidding. Okay, so unfortunately, this story is not the only one of its kind. In this case, much like countless others, something that was meant to be a simple form of punishment escalated into a brutal and harmful lashing. This leads me to pose the question, where are the laws protecting these children? I'll tell you where they are. In 24 nations across the country, and the United States is not one of them. There are laws protecting everyone in the nation from being hit, except the most vulnerable citizens' children. It's perfectly legal in every state to strike a child, and the only policies we have in place that even remotely protect children are laws surrounding child abuse, and those laws excuse corporal punishment. What's the difference, you may ask? Child abuse causes intentional harm, and corporal punishment causes unintentional harm. So a parent's intention is the only thing by law that separates the two. How effective can that really be? Well, let's look at the facts. Almost 2/3 of abusive incidents that result in referrals to Child Protective Services began as acts of corporal punishment meant to modify a child's behavior. Are you guys still there? Okay,
Yep.
you're all like really still. Clearly, the laws currently in place are too ambiguous to protect children. I'm sure some people hear these statistics and think that they don't apply to them. There are many children that are corporally punished that turn out fine. In fact, I myself was corporally punished. I'm a 10th generation North Carolinian that came from a long line of Southern tradition, and it's completely acceptable in the South to physically punish a child. My siblings and I were even whipped with a belt. Not often, but enough. But we all turned out just fine. I never even had a problem with corporal punishment until I did proper research on the topic and realized that we were the exception to the rule. Tradition cannot outweigh justice. Since when is it okay for laws to be based around the exception and not the rule? A small number of children, like myself, that are fine should not excuse the far more amount that are being abused every day while their parents call it punishment. So what should be done? Let's go back to the facts. Rates of death from maltreatment for U.S. children under the age of 15 are 10 to 15 times higher than the average rate for healthy nations. It is time to open our eyes and follow the precedent that countless other nations have set. Completely abolish the use of corporal punishment on children. Not only will it provide a way for the government to punish those that harm their children, it will lower the number of people that accept its practice. For example, a 2007 study showed that in countries where corporal punishment is legal, specifically France and Spain, over half of the parents spanked their children. But looking at countries where it was illegal, like Sweden, only 4% of parents had struck their child. Simply outlawing its use will decrease the practice of corporal punishment, further decreasing cases of child abuse. Now, what can you do? Educate. A majority of parents endorse corporal punishment because they are uneducated on the negative effects of its use. To illustrate this, a 2013 experiment asked over 200 participants their views on corporal punishment. Only 39% of them felt that it should be illegal, but after being presented with all of the information, that number rose to 70%. So after they finally understood what corporal punishment is actually doing to children, most of them changed their minds. Although not every child has to endure the negative consequences associated with physical discipline, it cannot be argued that the odds are drastically raised with every spank or paddle. One could make the bold assertion that no good, informed parent would want to take such a risk with their own child. Children are beautiful, innocent beings. They view the world through big, wandering eyes that fail to truly see the evil surrounding them. Who can truthfully argue that perhaps the most virtuous members of our society deserve to be punished by the cruel strike of a hand? It is time for us to stand up and protect those who cannot protect themselves. That's it.
Good job.
Good job, Megan.
I'm glad it didn't kick me out again.
All right, I have 6 minutes and 37 seconds, and that was with me not catching it all the time, stopping and stuff. So I think you're in the window.
Okay, good.
So I'm going to reset the timer for 5 minutes for our question and answer period because I think we'll need to move on after 5 minutes.
Okay.
So
I agree.
you actually addressed my question in your speech. I was going to say, yeah. So I'm not really sure what to ask now, but what I thought was, this is what my husband would say to me all of the time when our kids were little. I did not want to spank. And when we were talking about what we were going to do as a couple I said, I'm not okay with spanking. I think it teaches kids to hit. And I don't necessarily think that it's a good idea. Anyway, he was saying that, well, I was spanked and hit with a belt when I was little, and I turned out just fine. And I'm respectful of my parents, and I think it actually helped me to be a better kid, is what he said. And so I was going to say, you brought that up, that just because it's more the exception to the rule and not really the...
It's true. There are studies after studies that talk about how it heightens their aggression. They endorse hitting other children to get what they want, and they get angrier. And I didn't notice that myself, so I was always like, yeah, I'm going to spank my kids. I got spanked. But as soon as I did the research, I was like, wow, I was lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, that answered one of my questions too, is the effects on aggressiveness. Because it can be assumed because children are socialized by their parents, largely in part by their parents, and what happens in the home. And so if they see that kind of aggression, then, it would seem that they would also exert that aggression to those around them. So that answered my question too.
Good.
I missed the question part. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm trying to get everything.
I have another question. If Jessica doesn't have one. I wonder sometimes if there is a disparity between, like maybe just a little smack and then like whacking, beating.
Yeah, like spanking and like, what
your attention or something. You know what I mean?
That's a good question. And that's something I've always said too, along with I've always said, well, if you just spank them every once in a while, it's not a big deal. Some parents spank all the time, and that's what's wrong. But in all of my research, I found that really what determines the negative influence on the children is not necessarily the act itself, but how the children view the act. So even if you just tap them lightly, if they are threatened, if they feel threatened by it, that's what's going to give them the negative effects by it. So you really can't know, even if it's just a little pop or even if it's only every once in a while, you can't be in their head to know how they're viewing it. Yeah. So that's something that I learned that I thought was really interesting.
That is interesting.
So it's more like fear and intimidation then. Yeah, really. Okay.
Which goes along with my topic, just saying.
Oh, yeah.
Are we ready to move on? Are there any more questions?
No.
Okay. Cool. Then I'm going to stop the timer. That was only 3 minutes. But that was pretty good.
Nice.
Sorry, my fault.
All right.
No, it's not.
No. Okay,
sometimes I couldn't come up with a question, so I was like, I'll just think of it as they talk.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't even remember reading that at all, so I will think of a question from here on out. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I just want to start out with introducing you guys to my Aunt Beth. She's 45 years old. She's beautiful and one of the kindest people I've ever met. She's a school teacher, elementary school teacher, and she struggles constantly.
No. Okay, I'm going to pause the timer.
I wonder if it's just whoever's talking.
Yeah, that might be it. So you guys should be scared. I hope she's not still talking, just like telling her story and has no idea.
I wonder why it does this. It's so frustrating. Well, what should we do?
Is this longer than I was out usually?
Yeah. Yeah. probably about now. Megan, because you were reading it, how did you know when it froze?
Because as I was reading, I'd keep looking over to try and like somehow make eye contact with you guys, and if like one of you was like that, then I knew. But because sometimes you guys were just still, and I was like, oh, did it happen again?
Oh no.
Okay.
It looks like she's back.
There she is.
Kind of.
Hey, Jessica. I don't see her.
Jessica, if you can see or hear us, when I joined the call, I had to turn my webcam and my microphone back on.
Oh.
It looks like she left
what's
again.
happening. Darn.
Okay. Well, I wonder if we should, while we're waiting for her to go ahead and get it all worked out, should we go ahead and start with you, Katrina?
I can do that. And then that might determine if it's just the speaker that's cutting out too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'll reset the timer for you too. Oh, wait.
Wait, there's Jessica.
Ah, guys, what
You
is
are
this?
back. Yay.
Okay. Terrible luck. Okay.
All right, you want to start over again?
Okay. So you got that she's very insecure and she doubts herself all the time. And that's because she's a victim of emotional abuse. She was married to Mark for 15 years. This August, they will have been divorced for 4 years. When they met, obviously things were happy and good. They were in love, and she says that when she looks back, she realizes that on their honeymoon, she started to see little signs of emotional or verbal abuse towards her, not knowing what that was really. She says that as their relationship went on, they lacked intimacy, laughter, real connection. He was silent a lot of the time, blamed her for things that went wrong, and put high expectations on her. According to loveisrespect.org, emotional or verbal abuse is often so bad that the victim actually starts believing what their partner says. You might begin to think you're stupid, ugly, or fat. You agree that nobody else would ever want to be in a relationship with you. Constantly being criticized and told you aren't good enough causes you to lose confidence and lowers your self-esteem. As a result, you may start to blame yourself for your partner's abusive behavior. According to Leader.com, verbal abuse includes withholding, countering, discounting, jokes, blocking and diverting, accusing and blaming, and judging and criticizing. So this is exactly what Beth experienced during her 15 years of marriage with Mark, and she represents one of many, many people across the world. In fact, verbal abuse is the most common form of abuse, and it affects men, women, and children. According to a study by CBS, 30% of women are emotionally abused by their spouse or partner. Men are victims as well. Oftentimes we consider them to be the ones abusing, but oftentimes women treat their husbands or partners as though they are another child, telling them what they can and can't do, blaming them for everything that goes wrong, accusing them of lying when they might be telling the truth. It is unclear whether men or women are emotionally abused more, but it is shown that women use emotional abuse to gain power, and men are more likely to use physical intimidation, aggression, or violence. That's according to Callie Monroe, a psychotherapist. One of the hardest parts about abuse, and of course emotional abuse, is that when one has been abused, their understanding or view of themselves and the world around them is negatively altered. This often leads to a vicious cycle. Mark, Beth's ex-husband, was emotionally and physically abused as a child. While this does not pardon his actions, it helps us understand where the pattern began for him. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, in 2012, 3 million children in the U.S. are abused in some way. They identified psychological maltreatment as the most challenging and prevalent form of child abuse and neglect. Children who are emotionally abused and neglected face similar and sometimes worse mental health problems as children who are physically or sexually abused. Yet psychological abuse is rarely addressed in prevention programs or in treating victims, according to a new study published by the American Psychological Association. Beth and Mark have 2 children, my cousins. The oldest is Spencer. He is 15 and struggles because of the way Mark treats him. He has severe anxiety. Picture this 15-year-old. He barely is able to walk into school by himself without his mom walking him in or going to Mutual or church. Barely is able to do that. And sometimes he can't. Sometimes he throws tantrums and acts like he's much younger than he is. He's very withdrawn and silently demeaning towards Beth. He's been like that towards me. That's just kind of his way to handle things. Spencer is now part of this emotional abuse cycle that will take a lot of work to break. As you can see from Beth's story, emotional abuse is damning. The short-term effects are harmful and hurtful, but the long-term effects are tragic. In long-term emotionally abusive situations, the victim has such low self-esteem that they often feel they cannot leave their abuser and that they are not worthy of a non-abusive situation. Other effects are depression, withdrawal, physical pain without cause, suicidal thoughts or attempts, underachievement, inability to trust, feeling trapped or alone, and substance abuse. When I was searching for a law in regards to emotional abuse, there really were no legal ramifications against someone who is being emotionally abusive. Legal action can only be taken if it turns into physical abuse or it endangers the person's health or life. According to the Utah State Legislature, Title 62A, Chapter 3, it lists what emotional abuse is, actually even more specific than what I've gone into before, but it appears that it's only written there to distinguish between emotional and physical and sexual abuse. So just so that we can really be clear on what physical and sexual abuse is. Given the psychological abuse given that it is so harmful, it should be at the forefront of mental health and social service training. I suppose that it's easy for people to overlook emotional abuse because so much of it is often considered just kind of how we treat each other in our society these days. And it gives us, it's good to think about how we do treat those around us and to really think about what our words and actions are doing. Therefore, because verbal abuse is obviously definable, as I saw in that legislature, and has proven to be even more negatively impactful on someone than physical and sexual abuse, we should be treating it just as sexual or physical abuse. Many own smartphones or have the ability to record maybe the emotional threats or abuse when they're taking place behind closed doors. And if these are turned into the law, evaluation should happen for illegal action. Until then, though, we should commit ourselves to treating everyone we are around with consideration and kindness. I personally have committed myself to trying to help my Aunt Beth and my cousin Spencer feel loved and validated whenever I'm around them, which is sometimes really tricky because sometimes those that really need the love are hard to love. But I know that as I am trying to help them, I can maybe do a little bit in trying to help them break that vicious cycle of emotional abuse. And that is all, and I talked really fast. How much was that?
You were at 6 minutes, 40 seconds.
Sweet.
Nice. Perfect.
I talked fast.
Good thing you talked fast. I gave a little warning, like 5 minutes. I don't know if you saw me. I didn't.
I didn't.
I did. I
was reading.
All right. Do we have questions?
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Katrina.
I hope I can.
Okay. So this might be something like beyond your research, but do you know like what percentage like of people who experience emotional abuse, how much of a percentage of that is men compared to women?
No, I researched that, and it actually all that I found was that it's unclear.
Really?
Whether one is more than the other. Yes.
It's hard to gauge since it's not like illegal. It makes it hard to gauge that, but I thought I'd ask.
I have a question. So I completely agree that I think legal action should be taken, but I just wonder, I guess I'm wondering how it could be possible, because it's kind of like, well, he said this, she said that, but like there's no evidence. So I know you don't have a solution to that, but I'm wondering if in your research, did you find anywhere, like any nations or any states that do have it outlawed? Or is it pretty much nobody has it outlawed because it's
No,
so tricky?
I really couldn't find anything. What I like I said in my thing, I feel like why not? I know that my uncle, who was dealing with a different situation with divorce, he filmed things so that he could then turn it into the law. So I don't see why we couldn't do that. But
Right.
like my dad, he's a state president, and I was talking to him about this, and he is not required to report any kind of emotional or verbal abuse. Like it just stops there. You know what I mean? So I guess it's just how it is.
Unfortunate.
It's just really strange.
Yeah.
I was going to say, too, did you find, well, I have a question about it just because I want to know more about it, but I wondered if emotional abuse is you know how they say, like, marijuana is a gateway drug to other heavier drugs? Mm-hmm. So, like, is emotional abuse like a gateway abuse to physical abuse or sexual abuse, or, you know,
I would assume
like
so.
building up?
I would assume so, especially in my research when it said, I think that they kind of justify it by saying once it becomes physical or sexual, then we can address it. So I kind of think that that's hinting towards that it does segue into that. But
so
I don't think...
I was going to say, I have kind of an opposing views, too, because I think about how people could twist this. Like, if you were in a divorce case and somebody said something to get another person angry, and you knew that they would come at you with, well, you do this, you know, like if that's the kind of argument that you have all the time, and then record them being rude to them, and then using it against them, saying, look, they were verbally and emotionally abusive to me. Do you see... Do you think that maybe that's part of the reason why they don't have these laws? Because of situations like that where you could really turn it against a person and have it be a negative against somebody who lost their temper and may not necessarily really be emotionally abusing someone?
Yeah. You're absolutely right, yeah. I mean, I just think it's too sticky and too hard. You can't just plant a bug, you know, in someone's house and listen all the time. You know.
Yeah, there's laws against that, too.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Well, that's a good question. Good point.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
No.
All right. We stayed under 5 minutes.
Nice.
All right.
Hey, I'll go.
Katrina, you're next.
Yep. Here, let me pull it up. Okay. So I was recently watching a television show called Modern Family. Some of you may have seen that before. But in this TV show, there are two men that are portrayed as a gay couple who adopt a little girl named Lily. In this particular episode that I was watching, Lily wanted to be a princess for Halloween. She had wanted to be a princess for Halloween a few years in a row, and she was still wanting to be a princess this Halloween. The reason behind this was because she had a belief that her mom was a princess. At the Halloween party later, she saw a woman who was dressed as a princess and questioned her about if she was her mom or not. Why do you think this little girl with two dads would want to know who her mom was? And why do you think she envisioned her to be a princess? More importantly, why do you think it even mattered to Lily who her mom was? I mean, she already had two dads, so she doesn't even need a mom, right? Wrong. Every child has an innate need for a mother and a father. In the 2010 United States Census Bureau released a census showing that approximately 594,000 same-sex couple households lived in the United States. Of those, 115,000 reported having children. With modern technology and changes in policy and law, same-sex partners have access to things such as joint or second-parent adoptions and artificial insemination. Because same-sex parenting is becoming more and more common, there has been an increase in research about the psychological adjustment and development of children with same-sex parents. The question we need to ask ourselves is what kind of environments best foster psychological adjustment and growth and are best for a child? Advocates for homosexual parenting say it simply doesn't matter. Gay and lesbian couples can do just as good of a job. Gender and sexual orientation does not matter in parenting. However, just published in the Journal of Social Science Research, the most careful, rigorous, and sound study ever conducted on this issue, found numerous and significant differences between these groups, with the outcomes for children of homosexuals rated suboptimal in almost every category. There's been a debate on whether or not children raised by homosexual parents have any disadvantages compared to children who are raised by a mother and a father. According to the Family Research Council, this question is essential to political and ethical debates over adoption, foster care, and artificial reproductive technology, and it's highly relevant to the raging debate over same-sex marriage. In March of 2013, CNS News aired a story of an 11-year-old girl who went before a Minnesota legislature and posed a question that I want you all to consider. She stated, "Since every child needs a mom and a dad to be born, I don't think we can change that children need a mom and a dad." And the question she asked was, which parent do I not need, my mom or my dad? I want you to think about that. In an article by the Cornerstone Family Council, we're reminded that mothers and fathers parent differently, they play differently, and they communicate differently. Mothers offer security while fathers push limits. Either of these styles of parenting could be dangerous by themselves, but when used together, they keep each other in balance. The same is the case for other different parenting styles. According to a new study on homosexual parenting from the Family Research Council, children of lesbian mothers differ from children of intact biological families in that children of lesbian mothers are almost 4 times more likely to be currently on public assistance, are less likely to be currently employed full-time, are 3 times more likely to be unemployed, and are likely to have attachment problems related to the ability to depend on others. The state of Utah does allow same-sex marriage and does allow the recognition of same-sex couples from other jurisdictions. Utah State Code 78B indicated that any adult can adopt, but that a child may not be adopted by a person who is cohabiting in a relationship that is not a legally valid and binding marriage under the law of this state. While this prevents same-gender couples who are not married from adopting children, it does not prevent those same-gender couples who are married from adopting. While the state of Utah is somewhat recognizing the importance of marriage in raising children, they're not recognizing the importance of the roles of mothers and fathers in the home. The Family, a proclamation to the world, states that children are entitled to birth within the bonds of matrimony and are to be reared by a father and a mother who honor marital vows with complete fidelity. Some children do not have that privilege of being born to a mother and a father, but we can't let state policy enable just any adult to adopt those children. They still have the right to a mother and a father. Children have a need for a secure attachment with their parents, and that need is not going to change anytime soon. You can't try to redefine marriage and family within society, or you can try and redefine marriage and family within society, and you can try to convince us that it doesn't matter whether a child has a mother and a father. But what I'm telling you right now is that it does matter. We need to take greater measures to ensure policy and law in our own states to ensure that children receive the right to a mother and a father. The intents and purposes of God can't be changed by public policy or by a majority vote. It is in the best interest of children around the world that they be given the opportunity to have a mother and a father. Children do need their mothers, and they do need their fathers. Parenting and marriage cannot be defined by the government policy, but we need to protect children's rights. So which parent does a child not need, their mom or their dad? That's it.
That was so good.
Thanks, kids.
You did a good job. You're at 6 minutes, 7 seconds.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Could you guys hear the little kids running around?
Yeah.
Good, yeah.
Are those your kids?
No, I don't have any kids. My husband and I are just watching a couple kids for a lady in our ward. So.
Oh, that's funny.
One of them is not happy.
No. She's deaf, so she doesn't sound happy, but she's actually really happy. It sounds like she's
really?
All right.
Well, you answered my question, actually.
Oh, what was it?
I was going to ask about the laws surrounding adoption, for same-sex couples, but you answered it.
Yeah, so I looked it up because there was a site that you could look it up. The site was advocating for equality and for rights for same-sex parenting, but you could look up each individual state. So like Texas, like most states allow just any adult to adopt a child. Utah is different in that you, like what I stated, that if somebody's merely cohabiting and isn't in a legal marriage, then they cannot adopt a child who is the child of the person that they're cohabiting with. But in Texas, which Texas doesn't allow same-sex marriage or anything like that, but they allow just any adult to adopt. So, yeah, so it's interesting. It's very state by state.
That is interesting. So I'm just curious, did you find what research did you find that supported that a child needs a mom and a dad?
So
what did you say?
It was actually really hard. I found more articles that supported the fact that children don't need a mom and a dad, that they're totally okay with two moms or two dads. I found more of that kind of research than I did of the importance of having a mother and a father. So that was kind of hard. It was really hard to find that information, and I don't know if that's just because society today is so geared towards equality and things like that, that those kind of articles just aren't as popular or what. But the main things that I found was the different roles that mothers and fathers play, especially individually, like that girls need a mother and that boys need a father, but that adverse role is so significant to their development emotionally, psychologically, and not so much physically, but just mostly emotionally and psychologically, and just preparing them for life. It's just so much more beneficial to have a mother and a father role in the home to help them and I think gender development actually was another thing that was that they said was really significant with having a mom and a dad.
Cool.
I was going to say one thing about what you were just saying, though, too. I think historically, over time, there hasn't ever been an issue with same-sex parenting like there is now. Within the last 15 to 20 years, having a gay lifestyle has become acceptable. It wasn't always acceptable. It was something that was hidden or scary or whatever. And so I don't think that there is going to be research on it for many more years, because you have to wait for a generation to pass to see what it did to the families that have that. So I think that's part of it, is that there isn't any good research on it because not enough time has gone by yet to see what the consequences of that are, because it always was hidden. It wasn't something where people lived in situations that they do now. So I think it would be really hard to find research that would support traditional families, because that was just always the way it was.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is, although I agree with you about this situation, as an opponent of traditional families, I think that an opponent would say, well, what about all of these families that have, 41% of the babies born in the United States right now are born to unwed mothers.
Yeah.
So what about them? They don't have a mom and a dad in their family, or, what do you say about that?
Yeah, so with that, because I did run into research like that, or like articles where it was pro-equality, and so it brought that up. And in that case, I think for me, I decided what I was arguing was that children need a mother and a father, whether or not they have it, that the optimal circumstance for them to be under is to have a mother and a father in a marriage situation, because there are, like, parents get divorced, and so you have single parenting in that. Men and women have spouses that pass away, and so there's a lot of different circumstances where a mother or a father might not be in the picture. And so I had to really think about what I was arguing like if somebody were to bring that up. And I don't know exactly how I would handle that if somebody like posed that question.
That was,
What's that?
I said that was good. That
Oh,
was good.
but I really do think like I think the point is to provide the best circumstances, the best environment for a children or for a child to develop, and that best circumstance is going to be with a mother and a father in the home. And obviously that can't be controlled all the time, but when we can control it, then we need to do the best that we can to do that. And allowing same-sex parenting isn't something that we should. I mean, that's kind of in our control, and that's something that we can help more so than if a spouse passes away or something like that.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna. Does anybody have any other questions? We're at 6 minutes on that discussion.
Okay, it's your turn.
All right. Man, I was trying to delay it.
Very good.
All right, here we go. Not long ago, my son turned 18. He came to me a few days later and said he and some friends were going to go out that weekend to the casino. Going to the casino with your friends as soon as you're 18 seems to be a rite of passage in our area, and I don't think my son thought it was anything bad. The casino is close by on an Indian reservation, and my husband and I have been there several times to eat at their all-you-can-eat seafood buffet. In fact, many of my coworkers had suggested I take my son to the casino for his birthday and give him a couple of dollars to gamble with, just for fun, as they did with their kids when they turned 18. I have to admit I was kind of shocked by this idea because I had grown up thinking that gambling was a bad habit, not a source of entertainment. I can't imagine introducing my son to a bad habit. It really got me thinking about how society as a whole thinks of gambling. What I found is that an overwhelming number of us do not think that gambling is an issue at all. In fact, a poll by Pew Research indicates that 75% of the people polled here in the United States believe that gambling is acceptable or not a moral issue. Why do so many people think gambling is acceptable? Well, many of the individuals I know who gamble believe that eventually they will win something if they just keep playing, and some believe that gambling is a form of entertainment, a night out on the town with the chance of making a little bit of money back. What they don't choose to see are the negative consequences of gambling. Gambling has been around for thousands of years. Evidence of this is found throughout all of history. We as human beings seem to want to wager on everything we do. Gambling here in the United States has become more available in the past 15 years as regulations have allowed for more Native American tribes to open casinos and as gambling has become more available online. 44 of our states have a lottery, which is often used to generate income without the need to increase taxes. A lottery doesn't seem so bad, does it? I know that here in California, the money that is brought in from the lottery is used to help pay for education. The National Gambling Impact Study Commission found that Indian casinos provided jobs for tribes where none existed before, and the money they have made helped to improve the conditions of the land and the people who live on the reservations. These developments sound like gambling can help people, don't they? Again, the negative consequences of gambling are not looked at or seen. So what are the negative consequences of gambling? Why should we worry about it when there are so many positives going for it? The Mayo Clinic has said that gambling can stimulate the brain's reward system, much like drugs, such as alcohol can. This can lead to addiction or compulsive gambling. Individuals who are prone to compulsive gambling may continually chase bets, hide their behavior, deplete savings, accumulate debt, or even resort to theft or fraud to support their addiction. This type of conduct can tear marriages and families apart. It also has a huge fiscal impact on our country. The National Gambling Impact Study Commission says it has been estimated that pathological and problem gamblers cost the United States $5 billion a year in job loss, unemployment benefits, welfare benefits, poor physical and mental health, gambling treatments, bankruptcy, arrests, imprisonment, and legal fees for divorce. This same study also found that the number of pathological gamblers in an area increased as the number of legalized gambling institutions increased in an area. Gambling seems to be a pervasive problem with severe negative consequences. So what can be done about this problem? Congress has power through the Commerce Clause to regulate interstate gambling, international gambling, and relations between the United States and Native American territories. They have passed laws prohibiting the unauthorized transportation of lottery tickets between states, outlawing some sports betting, and regulating the extent to which gambling may exist on Native American land. In response to the growing problem of online gaming, Congress has tried to combat this new threat with the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act, passed in 2006, which made it harder for wagering businesses to receive money for illegal Internet gaming. This legislation did not have a significant impact on getting rid of online gaming. Instead, it made it harder for businesses to operate legally here in the United States. This has just resulted in many businesses moving their companies to different countries, not removing their businesses from the Internet. States have also enacted laws differing legal gambling ages and ratifying additional legislation to prohibit subtypes of Internet gambling. Each state is different, so specific information on whether or not this is even helping or protect our families from the threat of Internet gambling was not readily available. What our country is doing to combat this problem does not seem to be working. Kids like my son and his friends are learning from the community around them that gambling is an acceptable form of entertainment. What I feel these kids really need is education. We need to implement programs that will help our children understand the dangers of gambling and that it can become addictive, just as drugs and alcohol are. We should use some of the money that has been generated by state lotteries to educate our children while they are young. Many years ago, our country began taxing tobacco products with a higher tax and using those revenues to educate the public about the effects of tobacco use. Why don't we do this with our lottery funds? We can add gambling to the curriculum that is in place already in so many states throughout the country when teaching children about the effects of drugs and alcohol on a body. Gambling can be just as addictive and destructive to a person's life and family as these substances are. We need to protect our children and families. Contact your local school district and see if you can get gambling included on the curriculum in our schools. If we each try to do one thing to combat this problem, we can and will make a difference, and possibly we can save a family from the devastation that comes from gambling addiction. Okay.
Good job.
That was really interesting.
Yeah, it was, because I didn't know very much about gambling.
Mm-hmm.
My question, really quick. As I was listening, I wasn't sure if I missed this. Did you mention a rate of addiction? So, like, if somebody were to start gambling, the likelihood of them becoming addicted?
No, I couldn't find that statistic anywhere. I saw that they think that the percentage of people in the country who are addicted is like 15 million people. So, but I don't know what that is a rate of, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot of people, 15 million.
Wow.
Sorry. My question was, did you research if gambling triggers the same part of the brain that pornography does? Like, I would assume so, since it's the same part of the brain that drug and alcohol addictions.
You know, I didn't see anything that likened it to pornography, but it did say that it stimulates the brain just like drugs and alcohol do, that it's a reward system, right? So when you win something, then your brain thinks that you're going to win again. So even if you win just a minimal amount of money, it can trigger that. And in some people, I think just like pornography, in some people don't have a problem at all, and some people it becomes compulsive in a real situation, a real problem.
Yeah.
My question, and maybe this is like common knowledge and I'm the only person who doesn't know, but I'm wondering if there was ever a time period in the United States where it was illegal, like maybe if there was like an underground market for gambling, or I was just curious about that.
There are a lot of, well, it kind of comes and goes. There were periods of time where certain things were not legal, like in Nevada and New Jersey were the only states that allowed it for a long time ago. And there are some states that's the thing. There are federal laws, but really this is kind of state by state where the people who live there mandate what will happen there. So, like, some states don't even have a lottery. Hawaii, Utah, Idaho does. Hawaii and Utah, surprisingly, Nevada does not have a lottery. Believe it or not.
Weird.
I think
That's
there are like 6 of them. I can't remember all of them.
Huh.
Yeah. And so I was really surprised by that when I read that. But yeah, they all over time have decided their own thing. And even if a state has a law about gambling, the Indian territories, they are regulated differently. It's like they're their own sovereign country. So maybe Utah outlaws certain kinds of gambling, but the casinos can do what they're regulated differently. And there is like an Indian Gaming Regulation Act that is a federal act that covers Indian gaming. Says how many casinos they can have and that kind of thing.
Is there anything else that we're supposed to go over? It's 9 o'clock my time, and I still haven't eaten dinner. So I'm just wondering if there's something else we need to do, or if I can.
Let me look at it one more time really quick. I think we just have to fill out our forms for each other, and I think that's it. And turn in our reference.
Yeah,
page.
make sure you submit your reference.
Oh yeah. Thanks for the reminder.
Okay.
You guys did so good.
That's it.
Good job,
Thank
everyone.
you guys for working your schedules all around each other. I'm glad we found a time.
I am too. It was fun to be able to do it all together.
Yeah, I didn't want to have to join a different group. I'm like, I'm so familiar with them. I already know them.
Yeah.
It's getting the speech easier.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Hey,
Well,
All right.
Good
till
job,
next week.
guys.
Okay, I'll post
Bye.
this.
Hey, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.